Welcome, everyone. Glad to see you all here. I hope you're having a good summer. We're having this month's live session hosted by the AI Interest Group. Remember, if you can't stay for the whole thing or you want to share this with other colleagues, a recording will be available by the end of the week on our live sessions page. And if you've registered for this session, you'll get a link to that recording as well. Today, we've got Robbie Parks. She is with the Georgia SBDC. She is the statewide continuing education trainer and business consultant at the University of Georgia SBDC. And she's been deeply involved in developing AI training for the network. In fact, she was part of the original AI curriculum committee. And so she's taught nationwide AI programs to hundreds of advisors. She also advises small businesses in marketing, business planning, technology implementation, and she's worked directly with clients using AI for everything from content development to website building. So it's pretty exciting for us to have her today because she's going to talk to us about how the searches are changing. You may have heard about this SEO. It's always been important for small businesses getting found online, but AI is kind of reshaping how that works. And most business owners haven't caught up yet, or maybe they haven't. So Robbie will walk us through what's happening with that search, what it means for clients, and how you can actually help them navigate this shift. Robbie has asked that she can take questions throughout the presentation. So as she goes along, if you have anything you'd like to point out, please be sure to put it in the chat so she can check it out and let you know right there and then. And then, of course, if we have time available and there's something that still hasn't been covered, feel free to ask your questions. So with that, I'll let Robbie take it away. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you so much, Deanna. I'm so happy to be here today. This is exciting. It's my first time presenting for this particular group, so I'm excited to be here. Full disclosure, I cannot teach you SEO in an hour. I don't know how physically possible that would be, but I do. So I'm coming to this with the assumption that we know at least a little bit foundationally about SEO. I'm going to touch on some of the basics of SEO again. If you want to take a deeper dive, I've got my contact information on the screen. I'm happy to make the slides available to everyone. As Deanna mentioned, the recording's available. But if you want to reach out to me afterwards, please feel free to email me directly. Reach out on LinkedIn. I'm not as great about responding right away on that. I'm happy to work with you and your network offline or with your clients, however I can be of service, because I do realize that this is a very limited amount of time. And yes, please throw your questions in the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye on those as we go along. All right. So let's talk about the evolution of search because, as Deanna mentioned, it's changed a bit. One thing you might be seeing or have seen is that SEO is dead. SEO is not dead, and we'll see the reasons for that, but search is different. It's very different. We're seeing that AI, pretty much every other facet of life, has had a huge impact and disruptive effect. The stats show that around 2 billion monthly users are reached by Google AI overviews. That's if you search something in Google and you see at the very top, AI overview. That's what I'm talking about here. I'll go ahead and preface too. I'm going to say Google exclusively throughout just because Google still dominates the market share when it comes to search. So if you don't use Google, feel free to insert Bing, DuckDuckGo, Yahoo, your search engine of choice. But I'm talking specifically about Google numbers. We're seeing a lot more than half of searches resulting in zero click. So if you've seen zero click searches, what that means is people are asking a question, they're doing a search, they're finding what they need in that AI overview, and they're not clicking further. So businesses are seeing a decrease in organic traffic. So if your clients are saying to you, my organic traffic is plummeting or decreasing, is that normal? Yes. But it's not necessarily a bad thing because while this isn't a class on marketing, if you think about how that sales funnel works, you might be catching people at the very top of the funnel, right? They're just aware they have a problem. They're just doing some exploration. They might never have bought or converted anyway. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, the decrease in organic traffic. But what we are seeing is that people that do click through from an AI search through to a website have almost 4.5 times the value as someone who's just casually searching through organic traffic. So you can relay that to your clients. Yes, organic traffic is going down. We're seeing that. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but the clicks that you are getting are of higher value overall. I'm not surprised here. The latest stats are showing that AI search traffic may actually surpass traditional search as soon as 2028. And I'm not surprised there because people are searching not only on AI overviews and things like that, they're using platforms like ChatGPT, Perplexity as actual search engines now. That's especially high during Gen Z. We're seeing around 35% of Gen Z, they're using AI chatbots almost exclusively to search for information. I have feelings about that. My husband, while he's certainly not Gen Z, he has become one of those where he asks Claude everything. He will say, I'm going to talk to Claude about this. And he's in technology. And so I have to tell him it makes me really nervous when you're curating your entire online existence through one platform. Please just Google something or branch out. But I'm not here to judge, but just know that's where we're going is that people are finding that platform they're comfortable with and they're sticking there. So as this generation ages up, then we're just going to see this become more prevalent. So just be aware of that. But I mentioned that SEO isn't dead, and it's not. It actually is the foundation for all of this other stuff that we're talking about right now. I want to kind of give you a high level overview of how all of this AI search business comes together. At the foundation, you have search engine optimization. That's why I'm going to touch very briefly on SEO components, just because we need to ground everything we do in that foundation. You'll see that as we move into generative engine optimization and answer engine optimization, that SEO flows up to them. So SEO is going to help make your content discoverable and credible. This is what AI tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, AI generated search experiences, that's what they're pulling from. If you think about this high level, Google is a machine. These AI tools are machines. These are robots crawling other robots, right? That's how it all plays together. And with AEO, if you think about that artificial engine optimization, if you see on Google those featured snippets or people also ask, you'll see things like that. Or if you ask Siri directly, I don't know why I made an old school hand gesture for Siri. Okay, I just dated myself. But answer engines are also using that technology to answer direct questions. All of that flows down from this umbrella of artificial intelligence optimization. That's how it all plays together. So again, if you do everything grounded in strong SEO principles, you're good for the rest of it. You just have to make a couple of tweaks so that the robots understand what you're doing. Not seeing any questions so far, so I'm going to keep going. I mentioned I'm going to briefly touch on the different types of SEO because it's important. I can't say that enough. I promise I'll say it again. First, you've got technical SEO. I always describe this as the bones of the website. This is the code. This is what's going on behind the scenes. We use tools like WooRank here in Georgia that actually pulls a report of the technical structure. This is what helps Google and now these AI engines, these AI tools, crawl, interpret, and index a website, read a website, basically. On page SEO, that's what people think of traditionally with SEO. These are the keywords, these are the pictures that you use, the user experience, the headings. That's on page SEO. Off page SEO, those are things like backlinks. It builds your authority. It shows that, wow, this website is so important and so valuable. I'm going to reference it in my blog post or on my website. Last but not least, and perhaps most importantly for hyperlocal businesses, is local SEO. This is anything that involves a near me, best restaurants near me, best pizza in Athens, Georgia. That's the local SEO. you will see that these components all play a role in this larger umbrella of artificial intelligence optimization. Google has entered work, not has, it's been out forever, the EAT principles. And this is what everything should be grounded in. You can find this on the Google Web Developer Tools. You've got to first show your experience. Does your website show that you are the expert in the field? Because think about it. Google's customer is me, people who are searching. It's you when you're searching for an answer. So it wants to recommend the best of the best websites. Otherwise, its customers like me will use something else. So you can do this, your clients can do this through video tutorials, a curated experience, product reviews. That shows that you know what you're talking about and that you have experience in what you're talking about. Kind of playing along with that is your expertise in the business. This shows that you are the most credible person to talk about whatever that business is selling, the product or service. This is where you can have things like career information, if appropriate. Now, what I mean here and why I say don't just focus on checking boxes for SEO, because let's say that you have a client that has a retail store, right? I don't necessarily care that she worked as an executive somewhere before going to corporate America. It doesn't matter for that business. So always ground it in what's relevant to your customers. Things like degrees, if that's appropriate, it's appropriate for someone like me. My degree helps show my expertise. It's not going to be appropriate for all businesses. Also, things like job titles, credentials, skills. The A, give me a minute, authoritativeness. I don't know why they can't just say authority, but Google didn't ask me. This shows that you are the go-to subject. Not only do you have experience in the business, you are an expert in the business, but you're the go-to. Search engines and AI tools prove this, or you demonstrate this to them by having backlinks. An example is I had a client in Savannah, and they actually had Vogue Beauty online backlink back to them. It was one of the top 10 best products or whatever, and their sales went through the roof. That's a backlink. Comprehensive content is another one. And this is where clients sometimes get into trouble because they know their business, they know what they sell, and they kind of take for granted or forget. I don't, as the customer. Also, having a professional, easy to use site. And the last is trustworthiness. Is your website accurate? Is it honest? This is when it's going to look for things like, is the content correct? Is it important? Is it comprehensive? Also, things like your security certificate, privacy policy. None of this has changed. This is the SEO foundations that we've been building on. So as we move from SEO into that overarching umbrella of AIO, you're going to see a lot of these components where there really isn't anything new. It's just businesses don't think to think of it from this perspective. So seeing no questions, I told you I was going to blaze through that. Now let's get into actually working with your clients to know, is their website ready? Is it optimized for search and AI search? Notice I'm not saying just these artificial engines or artificial intelligence, because search matters too. Nothing has changed. So I want you to think, you don't have to answer, but for your homework, I want you to go back and look at your last 10 searches on Google, on ChatGPT, wherever you search. And I don't want you to say, oh, I searched for running shoes. Nope. I want you to write down the exact search term, whatever you typed in there. And the reason I want you to do this, and I want you to go through this with your customers, is that they know how they, or your clients, they know how they search. We all search a certain way. We all have a certain style. But for some reason, we go from how we know we search. And when it comes to building a website, we completely forget that and think that our customers are searching in some random way, like shoes, pizza. Nobody searches like that. So they want to optimize around one keyword, or they don't think about, would this be a comprehensive answer for me? So I want you to do that. And I want you to come at, not now, but again, when you're revisiting this, look at it through that lens of really being mindful of how people are actually searching out there. There shouldn't be a disconnect. So now let's look at how these artificial intelligence tools determine what makes a website valuable, how to recommend it. First of all, can they find you? Can search and AI find you? This goes back to technical SEO. Is your website accessible? Is it crawlable? So if you're saying, okay, well, how do I know this? I'm glad you asked me. First thing you can do with your clients is, can Google find the website? So what you can do is in Google, have in the URL bar, type site, SITE, colon, and then Amazon.com or GeorgiaSBDC.org, right? Whatever that is. You want to make sure as you kind of scroll through those results that if you know you've got 20 pages, are all 20 web pages there? This is also a really quick way to know if someone's got that dreaded template page left over from WordPress. It used to say, "Hello world." When I'm doing an SEO audit, that is like the number one way. Or if it's something like, I had a client that sold furniture, and one of these pages at a quick glance was chocolate covered strawberries. And I'm like, someone has a template page left over. It's just a real quick check. Now, if you're dealing with a client who has a massive website, this is not going to be a quick check. For those, highly recommend, or really anyone, that you are using Google Search Console. It is free, it is offered by Google, and it is an amazing tool. So what you can do is go in Google Search Console, and there's actually a section called URL Inspector, and that will tell you everything that Google is indexing for that site. If it's not indexing everything, you can do a force index after you make sure the technical code behind the scenes is correct, that you aren't blocking indexing for some reason. The next thing you need to look for is the website actually blocking AI crawlers? Because that's a thing. It's especially a thing now with AI. So what you can do here is in the URL bar, go to amazon.com/robots.txt. Actually, Amazon.com is a good one to check because I just knew off the top of my head, they were one of the ones early on that blocked pretty much everything from crawling their site. If you see something like this, disallow with the / that means that whatever is the user agent, they're not allowing those to crawl. In this example, OAI search bot is OpenAI, ChatGPT's parent company. But again, Google's another one because if you go, there is a list. They have Claude, they have Perplexity, lots of things that they're not allowing. They're doing that on purpose. But your clients, if you're saying, I have no AI traffic, and we'll cover how to know if there's AI traffic, check and see. It could be that they're disallowing it inadvertently. And then last but not least, actually test the website in ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever. And the prompt is just as simple as, what can you tell me about the UGA SBDC in Athens, Georgia? Use current web sources. That is important. Use current web sources. And that will let you know if it can find information about the business. That doesn't mean it's going to return that business in searches, but it at least lets you know that it can know who the business is. I have a question, Carlos. Do you think small businesses use AI to anticipate customer intent and better understand what clients need? This is one, we'll talk about AI prompts you can use to help understand those questions or anticipate questions that people might be asking. I always like to use that as one pillar when it comes to market research and customer research, because ultimately it is the client's job, I'm doing this in air quotes, to know their customers. And no, AI should be a supplement, not a replacement for that. That's a great question, though. All right. The next part of this is, can search and AI understand you? They can find you. Do they know who the heck you are? This again is going to traditional SEO practices. If you've heard me teach just about SEO, you've heard me probably give my cautionary tale of one client whose business involved, we'll say veterans, to not give away too much. And so when you think veterans, you might think camouflage, red, white, and blue, maybe military type scenery. When I went to his website, the main image was this beautiful beach. And I said, okay, it's pretty, but I don't get it. Let me move on. The next web page was a beautiful mountain vista. Now I'm getting confused. Like, I don't get this. When I asked him about it at the next one, which was a beautiful prairie scene or something, I was like, okay, dude, what's with this? Oh, I think that they're pretty images. Are you a travel agent, sir? Because that's what you're telling Google you are, right? At the bottom of this, and I hate to even say this because I know it's being recorded, but these are dumb, big air quotes, dumb machines. You have to spell it out for them. And as AI becomes more advanced, I'm going to stop saying that. That's why I still say please to the machines. So you have to make sure that they can understand you. You do this with clear product or service pages. What are you actually selling? Geographic relevance, if that is important. If you're like Amazon, geographic relevance doesn't necessarily matter. But if you're a hyper local business, it does. It matters geographically for those near me searches. Descriptive headings. Again, this is just SEO 101. About information, contact information. This is a big one. Do you have a current Google business profile? Bing Places, Apple Business. They don't call it register anymore. Do they call it connect? I think it's just Apple Business. Anyway, that's important too. An appropriate structured data. This is one of the most important things you can do to help the machines crawl a website. And what I mean by that, it's code. And I'm not going to go into the how, what, and why. What I recommend doing is go to schema, or that's SCHEMA, or structured data for Wix site, for WordPress site, for Shopify site, and it'll give you information on that. There's lots of information out there for how to use that structured data correctly. And schema.org is the kind of governing authority, governing body that says how that schema should be formatted. That makes sense. Questions so far? Seeing any others? All right. We mentioned those answer engine optimization, AEO. So is your website something that these machines can use to answer questions? Because again, when I said your top 10 searches that you did in AI and in a search engine, it was probably a question. What was the best? How would you recommend I? Right? So is your website set up that way? These are things like you have a product or service. What does it cost? If appropriate for the business. Some businesses don't want to publish their prices, and that's okay. But if you do, post it. Even if it is pricing is available upon request, a quote is available upon request. How does it work? Which option is right for me? How many times have you actually searched for that? Which is better, this or this, right? People are searching the same way. What should I expect from the product or service? How long does it take? What makes this different? Who is this appropriate for? Again, I don't want you to take this as I'm going to check every box, but what is relevant and appropriate for your client, for their business, and then just make sure you're checking those boxes. The next is, can it trust you? Can it trust your website? Remember, this was one of the T's. This was trustworthiness. That's why, again, all of the buzz is around AIO and all of that. It's really not that different. So, does your website demonstrate your expertise and your accuracy? This goes back to your firsthand experience, your credentials. Why should I trust you to buy from you instead of the competitor? Specific examples, original photos. And this is another one, please. I'm not going to get on this soapbox. AI is incredible at creating images. I used to, if you had asked me this 2 years ago, I would have said, I hate using AI for images with every fiber of my being. By the time I came up with a prompt to somewhat get what I wanted, I could have already done it in Photoshop 100 times over. I'm changing that perspective as it's getting better. But the problem with AI being so great at photos is everyone is using AI for photos, and it takes away what makes you different. How can I trust you if I know that the photo that you have on your website of your product is not real, right? So be mindful of that and use original photos where you can. And we won't even talk about how everything is getting flagged and labeled now as AI. That's a big one for transparency. I'm not going off on that. We can talk about that offline. If you've got research, data, case studies, again, this isn't going to be appropriate to everyone to have research or case studies. But if you've got, this is how my customer used this is how my customer put this into effect, that's a case study. Policies and guarantees, that's important. And now, I'm not saying you have to guarantee 100% return shipping covered or anything like that, but just state your policy, state what you guarantee. That's your promise that you're making. We've mentioned testimonials and reviews. These aren't new, but it's important to show, hey, people have had a great experience with this. Clear about and contact information that's already been covered in about, have an about section. I do want to say here, if you've got the home-based business who are saying, I don't want to publish my address. I don't want to publish my phone number. That's okay. Just have a way for them to contact you, right? Can be a contact form. Have a way so that the machines crawling this know, oh, there's a real way to get in touch with someone. This website isn't just a black hole. This is another one. Can search and AI verify you? This is another way of thinking I want you to help your clients break out of, is that SEO is no longer about a website. And this is the same for AIO. It is looking at your entire digital footprint, your entire digital reputation. And I see a comment, real chapter permanent. All right. So again, SEO is not in a silo. It is everything. These are things like your Google business profile, which they should already have, Bing places. And if you're saying, who the heck uses Bing? Really, anyone who is not using an Apple device and doesn't automatically change their browser. I automatically change it to anything Google, Chrome. But if people aren't, then they're having the default that Microsoft comes with. So Google business profile, Bing places, and Apple business. I care about Apple less for search and more for maps and navigation, but these are all free. Your clients should be using this. Industry directories, if not industry directories, local directories. These are things like, I think I still saw that Yellow Pages is still a thing, not the real ones, but these directories, even like Yelp, I hate to even say that out loud. Any kind of directory that makes sense for your business or your client's business, make sure that they're there. Chamber of Commerce, business associations, professional organization profiles. We've seen with SEO for years where people, when you search for something, it's not uncommon for LinkedIn to show above the actual website because LinkedIn has their optimization locked down. Again, it's a holistic approach. It's not just a website in a silo anymore. Social profiles. Yes, this matters. Now, it's questionable. And if you listen to what the machines are saying, ChatGPT, things like that can't crawl Facebook profiles. They can't crawl Instagram profiles. But the information that's available publicly from social profiles, that's playing into it. Review platforms, this is kind of going back to Yelp and TripAdvisor and those types of things. I am not telling you have all of your clients sign up or have a presence on Yelp or TripAdvisor or whatever. But my advice is always be aware of the spaces where people are talking about you and you want to be there. If they're talking about you in Reddit, you need to be there to a certain degree. Not selling, right? Not advertising necessarily or anything like that, but just being aware of the narrative so that you can use that in your market research. manufacturer or vendor listings if appropriate. This is not going to be appropriate for most businesses, actually. But these are the things that help these artificial engines verify you. We had a question, share my thoughts about Reddit. It is. And so interestingly, I just read that ChatGPT has started using Reddit less to lean on, but it's still important. And if you don't know, Reddit is a social platform. I go to Reddit when I want the true, unvarnished, what the people are saying about something, right? When I'm looking for, I mean, everything from technology to mascara, quite honestly. That's where you're going to get the unfiltered truth. I tell my clients, you need to be part of Reddit if people are talking about you, but just be aware it's not always a safe space. But that's where you're going to get the truth. And because of that, if you think about how all this plays together, Reddit is the voice of the people. Yeah, these AI engines are going to go to the people to get the information. So it is incredibly important. You cannot, and I'm going to have a big, this isn't a Reddit discussion, but a big exclamation point here. Do not have your clients go into Reddit and try to control the narrative. They will immediately be identified as this is a business or this is a bot or this is AI, and they'll call you out on it. Not to mention that you might actually get banned by the people, the moderators of Reddit. So be mindful of that. It is incredibly important to know what those conversations are. And if people are spreading incorrect information, make sure you address that. You can either address it as a person. That wasn't my experience with this business. You're not being salesy or anything like that, but make sure that you address it on the website, in social discussions, in a post. Hey, it's come to our attention that people are thinking this. We want to set the record straight. So that was a very long-winded way of saying Reddit is incredibly important. When I'm talking to clients, though, I'm always mindful to not add one more thing. Sometimes it's they're already doing the most. And if they add one more thing, that's when they're going to lose their mind. So just be aware of it. Reddit is important, but just help meet clients where they are. That was the soapbox instead of sharing my thoughts. But thank you, Dean, for that question. Okay. Yeah, Jennifer, I love Reddit too. All right. This is maybe one of the most important things. And this is through all facets of marketing when people are just throwing stuff out. Now, not talking about top of the funnel, because that's where you don't expect to get a big return. But ultimately, you want to know, is search and AI, are those two converting for you? Are they actually bringing you sales, qualified leads? You want to do this by making sure that the value proposition is obvious for the customer. This is marketing 101. Why are you better than your competitor? Why should I buy from you than someone else? You want to make that clear in your value proposition. We've talked about this. You'll see there's a lot of overlap. What does geography have to do with this? If you're a hyper local business in Atlanta, Georgia, then it doesn't really matter what people in California think, right? So that's why conversion is important. It's the same conversation I have when people say, should I be on TikTok, right? Is it going to get you actual customers and sales? Is there a next step? That call to action that we always tell people you must have on your website. What do you want them to do after landing on the website? Or what do you want AI to have them to do? Buy now, request a quote, stop by the store, whatever that is, make sure that call to action is clear. Can someone call, book, buy, request a quote, visit? That's the next step. And does the content lead somewhere useful? Because if you have people, and again, I promise I'm not getting into a marketing 101 thing, but it's all interconnected. It's the same reason we say if you have an ad on Facebook that talks about this shirt, that link needs to take people to the shirt. Don't make me hunt for the shirt after I see it, right? That's the same thing here. So artificial intelligence has recommended your site or you've shown up in an overview. Does that content lead somewhere that's useful for the customer and ultimately useful for you? Make sense? Not seeing any other questions. Okay. So hopefully through this section you've seen, as I've promised, it's not really different as far as if you start in a strong SEO foundation, the rest of this just flows naturally. It's maybe refining some content and fine tuning it just based on how these artificial intelligence tools are actually looking for information. It is not really that different from traditional SEO. Okay. So I started to name the section Fighting Fire with Fire, but didn't know if that was appropriate without context. So the official name is Improving Visibility with AI. But what I'm going to talk to you now is about how to use AI to improve your visibility with AI. Okay. And generative AI is a powerful tool for optimization. This is kind of getting back to the point of the question that Carlos had earlier about understanding the customer intent. Understanding, okay, this is good, but what questions are they actually asking? We get into that here. So I'll go ahead and tell you, and this is why I started with this and will reiterate. I will make the slides available to you. I'm happy, and I'll show you there's a QR code you can scan. I'll send them to you directly. Deanna, if there's a way to put them in the platform, we can do it that way too, because I don't want you to retype these. I realize they're very long, but I want you to be able to copy and paste. So what we're going to start with first is the search intent discovery. I am advising, this is from your perspective, I am advising a whatever type of business, an auto repair shop that serves young millennials in Atlanta, Georgia. The business offers auto repair services, right? The more context, the better, as always, with AI. Now, what I'm doing is I'm telling it, I want you to act as an SEO, GEO, and customer research strategist. This goes to the market research that we talked about. Identify the questions potential customers are most likely to ask. This is why it is very important that you give as much context as possible when you're saying, this is my type of business, this is where I'm located, these are my customers that I'm trying to reach. Because you're saying, I want you to take all of that information and let me know what questions they're likely to ask Google, Chat, GPT, or whatever, while becoming. This is the buyer's funnel, the sales funnel, the marketing funnel, right? Stops at awareness, ends in advocacy. So becoming aware of a product, that's the top, researching possible solutions, comparing businesses or options, evaluating the price, deciding whether to buy. Now I'm going even further. I want you to organize the questions by stage of the customer journey. That's literally it. If you see the funnel. And I want you to prioritize questions that could realistically influence a purchase decision. Guardrails. I don't want you to focus only on traditional keywords. Include natural language questions because that's how people are searching. Okay. I'm giving it the most information about how to do that. I'm telling it to prioritize because you will find AI is getting better and better about giving you lots of information. Even now, if I don't say prioritize, when I get a lot back, I will even type and say, give me the top 10, give me the most important 5. And so what you will see, that is the actual fleshed out, and I'm doing this in Chat GPT. Another thing I will say too is I am using paid tools here. I pay, not the University of Georgia. Robbie Parks pays for Chat GPT and Claude. UGA does pay have enterprise versions, but the reason I do this now, and it's the exact opposite of when I taught AI a couple of years ago, it's pretty much you pay to get the best information and get the most comprehensive information. So I like to give the people in my classes and my clients, this is what it could look like. And if you're not getting this from your free tool, you might want to consider paying for it. So that's why I'm showing you the paid version. And that's literally it. And this is just an example of the feedback. And it goes, becoming aware of a problem or need. Where can I get a healthy dinner in Athens? And it goes through from there. Now, this is it's a very comprehensive answer. We could have 10 pages of slides. I will spare you that and just say, take the prompt, put it in your own platform of choice, and see what you get out of it. But this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg of what it actually responded with. In this direction, we're going to first train the AI. Yes, you can build custom GPTs. Yes, it retains information to a certain degree. I'm talking just baby steps with a client, and we're going to use prompt training to build off of that for the next part. So I'm giving the AI information in advance. I need your help to assess the SEO, GEO, all the things of a website. Now, I picked this restaurant in Atlanta just because I happened to be thinking about it and I've never been. They're not a client. I've never even been there, but I had to use a real world example here so you could see a real world output. So I've given it the URL. The business is connected. This is a restaurant, by the way. The target customer, affluent professionals. I made that part up. I don't know. Their primary product, their location is in Atlanta. And now I'm telling it here, I'm going to follow up with questions. I want you to act as an expert in these areas. And I want you to look beyond the homepage. I want you to include as many pages as you can. I want you to tell me the pages you were able to access and review. Because, sometimes AI will, with confidence, I searched the whole website. And what that could mean is they've searched the parts of the website that was publicly available to them. A lot of this code can be blocked or inaccessible because of the way these websites are coded. So I want the AI to tell me what it could access. If you can't access enough to make a reliable analysis, I want you to tell me before making assumptions. And this is one where, because I'm training it, I actually say, do you understand? This is Chat GPT. Claude does, I'm going to say, a better view and better in my experience of actually saying, I don't understand. I need more information first. Chat GPT will sometimes, but either way, I'm going to say, do you understand? And then it says, yes, I understand. I was able to access and review these pages. Now, if you go through this and you say, look, I know this website has 20 pages, then you know you're not getting it all. You could even say, hey, this website has more. Why didn't you return it? And then it would say, I'm blocked or this isn't publicly available. So push back on it where you can. But I know at a glance, this is pretty much the structure for this website. So I'm cool with this. And then it goes into, I didn't identify a dedicated general about page. And now it's saying, I'll evaluate the site through 4 related but distinct lenses. Now it's telling me, yes, I understand. And look, I know what each of these terms mean, right? So it's just reassuring me more that it knows what it's talking about. And it just goes on and ends with, at the bottom, I'm ready for your first question. So this was setting the tone so that I don't have to do this every single prompt. We're going to utilize prompt training here. So in that same chat, because we've trained it, we don't want to start over. Now I want you to look the website readiness audit. Evaluate whether the content on the site makes it easy for search or AI to know who the business is, what products or service it provides, who it serves, where it operates. This was on one of the slides further back about how AI actually looks for content. Identify unclear, generic, unsupported statements. Because remember, it wants accuracy. That shows that you're trustworthy and that you're a go-to subject. And then I'm telling it to rank. Do not, these are guardrails. Don't recommend adding content simply to increase the word count. Because an AI could say the optimum blog post is rarely around, between 1,500 and 2,500 words. We're just going to stuff that with other information. If it's not valuable content, it doesn't matter. Quality over quantity, always. And so you can see here, this was the same chat that I had before. And then I'm just prompt training, literally what I had. And now it's giving me this. It's telling me what it reviewed. And then it is telling me an important distinction. This is a content discoverability audit. I didn't look at core web vitals. I didn't look at search console data backlinks schema markup. That's the schema, what I mentioned earlier with the structured data. So it's telling me this is what I did. And then it goes into an overall assessment. Again, I'm not reading this or posting all of this. I want you to do this on your own with your own clients. And it's saying here, this is where you're strong. And this is where you don't really say what you do. It doesn't say who you are. And then it's giving priority improvements because I told it, you can give me a lot of stuff. I want you to tell me what's most important. And then you can see here the impact on SEO, GEO, and AIO customers. And then it gives some examples here and trust and believe when it went on and on and on. So this is using AI to optimize for AI. Building on that even further, that content gap analysis, because remember, it's looking for thorough content. Now I'm telling it, identify important topics, questions, concerns. I want to know, this is going back to Carlos's point of what are people researching? What questions are they asking? And that my website doesn't adequately address. You could stop there, but I want you to go even further. And for every gap you identify, I want you to tell me these things about it. Again, at the end, I'm telling it what to prioritize. And I'm saying, don't recommend creating content just to increase word count or publishing generic SEO articles that don't add value. This is what I tell everybody when I was teaching organic SEO. Please don't try to be cute and trick the algorithms. A, you won't win. B, the algorithm will change, which C, makes it harder for people like me to keep up with it all. So if you could just not and be a good human, thank you for that. So don't try to trick. You will not win against these things. And then from there, you can see once again, I'm in the same chat because I trained it. I'm not undoing all of that work and then pasting that. And now you're getting, these are the gaps. And just like I asked, it's what type of restaurant is Canoe? What type of cuisine does it serve? And that makes sense, right? If a friend of mine says, hey, you really need to try Canoe, ChatGPT, hey, what kind of cuisine does Canoe serve? And it's going to tell me. Is it actually farm to table? Do I need a reservation? Right? How many times have you asked that question yourself when looking at restaurants? How far ahead should I book? Going back to that, I want you to write down the exact 10 most recent searches. That's why there is a disconnect for some reason between how we actually search and the content people and businesses think should be on their website. And it tells me why it matters in the buying journal or on that marketing or sales funnel, current coverage, recommended improvement, and what priority it is. Now, it gave me lots. Notice that all of these are high priority because I told it to organize it by priority. So this is a way, again, we're using AI to work with the AI search and organic search because they're not separate. And then last but not least, improve the existing content. Because in a lot of cases, your clients have a website, they have content, but it's not great or it's not comprehensive. So again, now I'm changing it up a little bit and saying, I want you to act as a content editor as well. And I want you to improve the website. I'm telling it how. I want you to improve the website. And then, as always, I'm giving it guardrails. Don't invent facts. Don't invent credential statistics. If it's missing, I want you to tell me owner input needed. Give me a place mark there, a placeholder, rather than making it up. And then give me the most important changes. Now, just because I told it not to invent facts, credentials, and so on doesn't necessarily mean it's still not going to. We'll talk about best practices, being the human in the loop, and so on. But this is a way that you can more quickly just scan that existing content to see how it stacks up. And sure enough, in the same prompt, this is what I did. And so you can see here, it did give that placeholder. Hey, the owner needs to tell me this. I don't know. And so in that same chat, you could say, so this is the answer to that, revise it. Okay. Still, even though it's given you recommendations for content improvements, I would never copy and paste. Google so far is saying that it's not penalizing AI generated content, but do know that more and more these AI tools are being forced in the European agencies for different regulations, but it's becoming increasingly transparent where you just don't want to copy and paste. It needs to be your own. It needs to be your brand, your voice. So use it as a start, but always go back and refine it a little to make it your own. And it matters because using AI to generate content actually ranks faster. The research has shown so far that around 2/3 of AI generated content ranks within 2 months. Before we would tell people, hey, organic SEO, this can be up to a 6 month lick, right? It's not overnight. So it kind of makes sense that the robots know how to write the content that the robots will appreciate, right? It makes sense. And the research is bearing that out so far. Questions about that so far? Okay. Seeing none, and I'll have time at the end, or I'll try to. I've talked a lot about measuring results. That was kind of early on in the does it actually lead to anything? So there are lots of tools out there to help your clients do this. Google Analytics is becoming better at using ChatGPT, Claude, those types of things in its traffic acquisition. It's still hit or miss for now, but it's evolving as all of these are. Head content, yes. And again, Dean, thank you for that. FAQs, glossary of terms, buyer's guide, those are great for SEO. And it also helps these answer engines and everything pull that out as well easily. So use the results to write our own content, but not use the actual. Yeah. And so, Jennifer, this is a great point. Always use it to poke holes, notice the gaps and those types of things. And you might use some of it and say, you know what, this is perfect as is. I'm not making changes. I have never, in my history of using AI, had it produce something so perfect that I used the whole thing in its entirety. I always changed it a little bit, always to make it my own. And I advise clients to do the same. So, yeah, I'm not saying you have to completely rewrite it, but you do want to put your own spin on it. That's a great point. Okay. So Google Analytics is great. Google Search Console, within the last 6 months, maybe, they've actually rolled out an AI performance report. This is not very comprehensive yet. It's still in beta testing as of yesterday when I double checked this because it changes all the time. But just know that's there and it's going to, I would imagine, keep getting better. That's another tool. Bing, if you're using Bing, also has Webmaster Tool. They've got an AI performance report that'll help. So you can at least know where traffic is coming from and how much of that, if it's going up or down based on AI searches and AI platforms. There's also paid tools. SE has a whole AI visibility component of it now. SEMrush is not expensive. I mean, it's not inexpensive. So Robbie Parks does not pay for that. But if you've got a client kind of interested, it provides access to a demo, this Warby Parker column, which that's an eyeglass company. I'm not even going to ask how that arrangement happened. But anyway, you can use warbyparker.com and you can see a little bit of the information that it provides so that you have an overview. Any deeper dive into this, I can tell you, is behind a paywall. And CMrush does not give it away for free. But you can just kind of play around with it a little bit and see what's available. I think if you just go to semrush.com, it'll have a way to get you started. I'm already logged in, so it always takes me straight to my URL. And there's also one, Geopti. This is a free tool, but again, you get what you pay for. So I would not use any free tool as this is my end all be all for AI visibility. But just know it's out. If you want to play around with it, that's another one. I'm sure there are others that I'm not even aware of. If y'all know of good ones, throw that in the chat for AI visibility tools. But these are some good ones that are industry recognized, maybe not Geopti, but the other ones. So I want to leave you with some key takeaways, best practices for working with your clients, and know that we've covered a lot. But some things to keep in mind, like I've said, search isn't dead. It's just different. You have to start with a strong SEO foundation, period. You can optimize for all the best answers and everything, but if your SEO is garbage, you're building what is it, a house of cards. Optimize for people first. If you're saying, oh, but the robots are crawling the site, why don't I optimize for the robots? Because they're crawling based on what people are searching for, real people. You can use things like your structured data to make the machines better able to understand your web content. Always optimize for people first. Be the human in the loop. We talked about that. AI is going to give you some very comprehensive information, tools, content, all of the things. You always want to be the human in the loop. You want to make sure that what it's giving you is based in reality and also based in the reality of your clients. Because I know with mine, if I were to say, hey, ChatGPT, give me a comprehensive AIO strategy plan for my clients, and it gives a 20-page home of to-dos, my clients are going to run streaming from the office. It always has to be grounded in the reality of your clients and where they are. And when in doubt, Google has a great web developer guide and resources that tell you things like, oh, hey, this is the latest trend. Google will say, no, we don't penalize this. This is still important. And that's coming straight from Google, which is the Google, right? So when in doubt, just go to their web developer tools. And that is the best resource you can use for things like this. Also, look, I don't know how comprehensive it is with all of the evolution going on, but you can actually go into ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity and say, hey, how should I rank or how should I change my web content to optimize for you? What do you look for when ranking content? Ask the source. And some red flags protecting your clients. Anybody that says we guarantee top anything, nobody can guarantee anything in the SEO world. If anybody says SEO is dead, it's not. If anybody says AI search is completely different from SEO, and here's a whole price point for me to optimize it differently, no, run. If they say we're only going to optimize the website and not look at local directories, not look at how social media and all of that play into it, and any quick fixes or shortcuts, just don't run. Tell your clients to run. Questions. We covered a lot. I have a whole 2 minutes left for questions while I'm waiting for those to come in. And at this point, Deanna, unless you think it'll be total anarchy, I don't mind if you unmute yourself at this point, but I do want to put this up because if you scan that, it's just going to ask a couple of questions. I'll email these slides directly to you, and then I will send them, Deanna, to you as well to post if that's a thing. So thank you for the thank yous. It's good to see some familiar names out there. If you do have questions, throw it in the chat or unmute yourself. Yay, Heather. Go-to sources to learn some of this. So Google was a big one. Some of the leaders in SEO remain SEMrush, Moz, M-O-Z. Google remains a big one. Claude and ChatGPT, not saying the others don't, but these are the ones I'm most familiar about. They've got great tools and resources for learning. I tend to avoid, I'm an expert because I posted something on LinkedIn. I always like to make sure that it's grounded in their expertise or it's grounded in actual data. Those are just some of my go-tos. And I'll say too, if anybody's got any other ones, throw them in the chat so we can learn. All right. Yay. Thank you for the thank yous. Deanna, final words and what must be the 15
Thank you
tickets
so
we have
much,
left.
Robbie. I think we're all in agreement. This was a great presentation, incredibly useful, very interesting. And yes, the recording will be available by the end of the week, along with the slides, so you can follow up and stay in touch with Robbie so she can teach us more. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next month.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.